An orphan boy finds old sneakers he thinks are Michael Jordan's, and wearing them turns him into a basketball star while he waits to be adopted by the perfect family. That's why today, like Mike. If you enjoy the videos, support the channel by liking, subscribing, and enabling notifications. It's free and it really helps me keep growing. Now let's get started. Even in the story of Calvin, a boy who lives at the Chesterfield Orphanage, where he usually plays basketball with his friends. Then the orphanage bully, Ox, shows up and challenges him to a one-on-one game. And if he loses, he has to give him his jersey. His friends, including Marvin Reich, try to talk him out of it, but they still accept the challenge. And a few seconds later, we see him lose quickly. So then Ox rips the jersey and mocks him in front of everyone. Although Calvin doesn't let himself be intimidated, saying that when he grows up, he'll be a professional basketball player. That's when we meet Beetleman, who runs the orphanage and tells them to sell candy to raise money. That night, Calvin sees the coach of the Knights, named Wagner, leaving, and he approaches him to talk about the game and his passion for the sport. He tells him he's an orphan selling candy for the orphanage, but when Wagner tries to buy some, he refuses because he's unsure where the money goes, and instead the coach offers him tickets for the next game. The next day, Sister Teresa arrives with a donation box. She pulls out a coat and Calvin's sneakers fall out, catching everyone's attention. Maka says they belong to a famous tall, bald basketball player, I swear, and that's when our protagonist discovers the initials Michael Jordan marked on them, so he starts to believe they belong to Michael Jordan. The most curious thing of all is that the sneakers fit Calvin perfectly, but when she leaves, Oxy appears to bother him. He takes them off to throw them and leave them tangled on the power lines. That night, in the middle of the storm, Calvin wakes up his friends to help him get the sneakers back. He goes outside and climbs a tree to reach them. As he grabs them, lightning hits the wires, triggering an explosion that knocks him down. Luckily, Calvin is fine, and now he notices the sneakers glowing as if they have some power. On game day, our protagonists get the tickets, and Calvin invites his rival Oxy, asking him not to tell Beetleman. Later, we meet Frank, who holds a halftime raffle for an audience member to play a one-on-one game. With Tracy Reynolds, the team's star player, Calvin wins the raffle, and when he reaches the center court, he's told he has 60 seconds to beat Tracy. So the boy ties the laces of his new sneakers, wishing to be turned into Mike. When the one-on-one starts, we see that Calvin scores twice without much difficulty, making Tracy start to worry, since he doesn't want to look ridiculous in front of the crowd, and decides to start playing seriously. But our protagonist makes a remarkable jump to score the winning point, leaving everyone amazed. After this, Frank and Coach Wagner go to the orphanage to talk to Beetleman. They offer him $7,500 to hire Calvin for a day to play with the Knights. The Guardian agrees. Later, Calvin tells his friends the news and says his sneakers are powerful, because before he had them, he wasn't that good at playing basketball. He decides to keep it secret so no one knows, but in the distance, Ox overhears the conversation. On the night of the game, Calvin takes his friends to the court so they can watch him play. And when they enter the locker room, the other players make fun of Tracy for being beaten by a kid. That's when he gets the Knights uniform, including new required sneakers. When he talks to the coach, he learns he won't play because they just hired him to increase the attendance of the public and nothing else. During the game, the Knights start to lose and the rivals widen the lead, so the whole team gathers with the coach. When Calvin finally joins, he shares his winning strategy, which sounds like a great idea, because the coach substitutes the boy for another player. The game resumes, and when Calvin realizes he forgot his magic sneakers, he gets very nervous. He keeps passing the ball to Tracy repeatedly until he calls a timeout for a bathroom break. Does he actually go to the locker room to change shoes? After finding them, he returns to make his special move, and much more, because thanks to his performance, the Knights end up winning the game. His victory gets him a contract to travel with the team, so he returns to the orphanage to pack. At that moment, Beetleman appears to tell him that probably many people will want to adopt him now that he's famous. He won't allow it because his guardian's contract states that as long as he plays with the Knights, he can't be adopted. This way, he'll protect his money during the trip. The coach tells Tracy that he'll share his hotel room with Calvin, and even though he doesn't agree, he has no choice but to accept. That night, Tracy leaves the hotel, and and the boy offers to go with him. But the player persuades him to stay and order anything he wants from room service. Since he's part of the team, everything he orders is free. When he returns, Tracy finds the room a mess because Calvin ate until he nearly burst. But he doesn't pay much attention to it and asks her to leave. Since he came with a girl, Calvin ignores him. When he goes to the bathroom, the girl asks if someone else is there. She then meets Estrella and, noticing he's sick, offers to take him for a walk to get fresh air. In the room, Calvin apologizes to his roommate and asks to pray with him before bed. He asks to leave the light on because he's afraid of the dark. When the boy falls asleep, he starts snoring. That's why Tracy is very sleepy the next day. And Calvin tells the coach that they stayed up late the night before, which makes Wagner scold him because he can't bring women to the room and they must be in bed before 1, 2, or else he'll have to suspend him from the team. After this, Calvin tries to apologize for telling what happened, but Tracy is upset and tells him she's going to stay away from him. As the days go by, Calvin fails, asking for autographs from the players on the rival teams, but his great plays help the Knights win more games, making him the main focus. Although schoolwork sometimes complicates things for him. When the trip ends, Calvin returns to the orphanage where Morph asks how it feels to be famous. Calvin says it's fun because he has everything he dreamed of. And then Ock gets up to bother him by trying to take his sneakers. Fortunately, Viral Man arrives to save him and warns the bully he'll be sent to sleep in the basement. Otherwise, he keeps bothering our protagonist. One night, Tracy tells his friends he's going to the pharmacy for allergy pills. And even though Calvin wants to go with him, the star player refuses, making him feel bad. Then, his other friend tells him not to worry about it, since Tracy doesn't get along with anyone. While the famous player heads to the pharmacy, Calvin appears to scare him. How did he manage to get there in time to hide in the back seat? When they arrive, the boy stays waiting in the car. When Tracy meets a pharmacist, he flirts with her and ignores the others. She tells him she says the bottle with red caps has strong sleeping pills and he should take only one. The pills with blue caps are for his allergy and he should take them twice daily. So he keeps getting distracted talking to the girl and doesn't realize that he takes the wrong pills. When he returns, he quickly falls asleep at a red light. The problem is that it's almost 12, and if he's late, he'll be suspended from the team. That's why Calvin switches seats to drive faster and reach the hotel on time, though he doesn't make it on the way. He has several unexpected problems. The next day, Tracy learns Calvin was punished for reckless driving and took the blame to avoid suspension. Later, the boy apologizes to her and says he truly wants to be her friend. At the foster home, Morph tells him a group of parents want to adopt him, even though no one else does. Calvin confronts Viral Man about lying, and Viral Man says he was just protecting him. But the boy insists that he wants a family, so the caretaker adds meetings with the worst candidates. To persuade him, it's best to remain in the orphanage under his care. Later, Calvin visits Tracy's house to learn about her, but instead shares his problems, and she helps him with geometry. One afternoon, Morph tells Calvin that Tracy is the perfect person to adopt him. But Calvin disagrees, because she doesn't even talk to her father. And the next day, he tries to help her reconcile with him. But he only manages to make Tracy upset. A few days later, a couple waits for Calvin at the orphanage to adopt him. Meanwhile, Calvin Videlman asks OX about our protagonist's magic sneakers. Later, he gives the boy new sneakers so he can replace his old ones, telling him to make a good impression on his potential new family. Before leaving, Calvin asks Morph to take care of his magic sneakers as if they were his life. After they leave, Knox and Videlman arrive to take them away. They burn his only photo of his biological mother to pressure him into revealing their location, and he tells them everything. The caretaker then goes to a bar and bets $100,000 that the Knights will lose the championship. Calvin is having dinner with his future family while Tracy finally talks to her father. When the day of the game arrives, Tracy hopes to tell Calvin something important. But when she learns a couple will adopt him, she forgets what she was going to say. Shortly after, and with little time left before the game, Bright forces Morph to tell Calvin everything that happened with the sneakers. He decides to go to the orphanage quickly, but it's too late and the game starts without him. At the orphanage, he asks his friends to help catch Videlman. When Ox learns Solo only used him, he he chooses to help Calvin recover the magic sneakers from the safe. Luckily, Calvin had bought skateboards for everyone, and so they head to the stadium at full speed to get to the game. On the way, they encounter gamblers who try to stop them. And thanks to his skill, his magic sneakers, and the help of his best friend Morph, our protagonist manages to get away from them. At the court, Vittleman tries to stop them, but Calvin attacks him with his skateboard and joins the game just in time to help them win. Gradually, he scores all the team's needed points. But when the score is tied and there's very little time left before the game ends, an accident happens where Calvin's sneakers break completely. The boy tells Tracy he can't continue because his sneakers lost their magic. But Tracy tells him that he believes in him and convinces him to put on another pair. Before the last shot, Calvin tells his teammates he wants to quit playing to be a normal kid. When he returns, the protagonist appears to have lost his talent but still makes a great pass to Tracy, who scores. With these points, the Knights win. After the game, Calvin goes back to the orphanage instead of joining his adoptive parents, feeling out of place with them. The next day, the team arrives at the orphanage because now the Knights will sponsor the home. We find out that Vittleman hasn't returned since the day of the game. Because of the bet, he can't pay. Tracy tells Calvin she wants to adopt him and Morph, making them brothers. Afterwards, we see that Rake found a family and that Calvin finally lost his fear of sleeping in the dark, although he still snores while he sleeps. That was like Mike. Remember to like, comment which movies you want, subscribe, and enable notifications so you don't miss future videos.